Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parudikacharya Ashtotar Tadashi Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parudikacharya Ashtotar Tadashi Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavin Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet. Before reciting this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashtaprayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed unto nil, and loving devotional service to the Lord who is glorified in transcendental songs is established as an irrevocable fact. No heat today? Should it be on or off, Balaram? But it wasn't on before. Isn't it cold in here? I mean, honestly speaking. Let's turn it on for a few minutes at least, okay? Jesus. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 19th day of December 2022 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace HG Dravida Dasa Swami Prabhupada. We're in Canto 6, entitled Prescribed Duties for Mankind. Chapter 3, Yamaraj instructs his messengers, text number 18. Bhutani, Vishnu, Sura, Pujitani, Durdarsha, Lingani, Mahabhutani, Rakshanti, Tad, Bhaktimataha, Parebhyo, Mattash, Chamatyan, Atasarvatascha, Bhutani Vishnu Sudapurjitani Durdarshalingani Mahabhutani Rakshanti Tan Bhaktimata Parebhyo Mattascha Martyan Atasarvatascha Bhutani Vishnu Sudapujitani Durdarshalingani Mahabhutani Rakshanti Tan Bhaktimatak Parebhyo Mattascha Martyan Hatasarvatascha Bhutani Vishnu Sudapujitani Durdarshalingani Mahabhutani Rakshanti Tan Bhaktimatak Parebhyo Mattascha Martyan Hatasarvatascha.
Correction. I missed an R after the U and it's Durdarsha, not Durdarsha.
Durdarsha. Okay, second line. Bhutani Vishnu Sudapurjitani Durdarshalingani Mahabhutani Rakshanti Tan Bhaktimatak Parebhyo Mattascha Martyan Atasarvatascha. Bhutani Vishnu Sudapurjitani Durdarshalingani Mahabhutani Rakshanti Tan Bhaktimatak Parebhyo Bhutani Vishnu Sudapurjitani Durdarshalingani Mahabhutani Rakshanti Tan Bhaktimatak Parebhyo Mattascha Martyan Atasarvatascha. Bhutani Vishnu Sudapujitani Durdarshalingani Mahadbhutani Rakshanti Tad Bhaktimatak Parebhyo. Ladies? Bhutani Vishnu Sudapujitani Durdarshalingani Mahadbhutani Rakshanti Tad Bhaktimatak Parebhyo Mattascha Martyan Hatasarvatascha Bhutani. Living entities or servants. Vishnu of Lord Vishnu. Sudapujitani, who are worshipped by the demigods. Durdarshalingani, possessing forms not easily seen. Maha-adbhutani, greatly wonderful. Rakshanti, they protect. Tat bhaktimataha, the devotees of the Lord. Padebhya, from others who are inimical. Mattaha, from me, Yamaraj, and my order carriers. Cha, and Martyan, the human beings. Ata, thus. Sarvataha, from everything. Cha, and. Translation. So this is Yamaraj speaking to his dutas. The order carriers of Lord Vishnu, who are worshipped even by the demigods, possess wonderful bodily features exactly like those of Vishnu and are very rarely seen. The Vishnu Dutas protect the devotees of the Lord from the hands of enemies, from envious persons, and even from my jurisdiction, as well as from natural disturbances. Purport. Yamaraj has specifically described the qualities of the Vishnu Dutas to convince his own servants not to be envious of them. Yamaraj warned the Yamadutas that the Vishnu Dutas are worshipped with respectful obeisances by the demigods and are always very alert to protect the devotees of the Lord from the hands of enemies, from natural disturbances, and from all dangerous conditions in this material world. Sometimes the members of the Krishna Consciousness Society are afraid of the impending danger of world war and ask what would happen to them if a war should occur. In all kinds of danger, they should be confident of the protection by the Vishnu Dutas, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. Kaunteya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashyati. Material danger is not meant for devotees. This is also confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam. Padam padam yad vipadam natesham. In this material world there are dangers at every step, but they are not meant for devotees who have fully surrendered unto the lotus feet of the Lord. The pure devotees of Lord Vishnu may rest assured of the Lord's protection, and as long as they are in this material world, they should fully engage in devotional service by preaching the cult of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Krishna, namely the Hare Krishna movement of Krishna consciousness. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, Yamaraj is continuing to instruct his Yamadutas about the glories of the Vishnu Dutas, the representatives of the Lord. And in one translation you may remember that Prabhupada simply translated Vishnu Dutas as Vaishnavas. So Vaishnavas, real Vaishnavas, are meant to be representatives of Vishnu. We're also Vishnu Dutas, the order carriers of Vishnu, the messengers of Vishnu. What does it mean to distribute Prabhupada's books? You're the messenger of Vishnu, of Krishna, giving that message as it is to the conditioned souls so they can be enlightened, enlivened, and delivered. So then there's this whole thing about protection, that the Vishnu Dutas protect the Vaishnavas from danger. And Prabhupada mentions nuclear war here, and that devotees asked him in the 70s, it was quite a fraught decade when the Vietnam War was going on, and the Cold War was in full swing, and both sides, the Soviet Union and the United States, were building up their so-called defenses, and everyone is thinking, well, are they going to use them? It hadn't been so long since the Cuban Missile Crisis when we came this close to Armageddon. None of us would be sitting here if it had blown up. And we happen to be in a situation now that's very dangerous. I mean, I'm not being an alarmist. You just think what's going on. You know, we've got this war in Europe going on now for, it's going to be a year in February. And the United States is on one side and Russia's on the other. You know, we're arming the Ukrainians. So there's a clear danger. Everybody in the world who's at all aware of what's going on is a little bit on edge. So, well, are they really going to have peace soon? You know, what's going on? So, and we should know history. In India, when the invasion started taking place in the 12th century, 13th century, in the Middle Ages, there were huge massacres of Vaishnavas. I mean, there were, and if they were advanced, of course, they were chanting Hare Krishna. They were remembering Krishna at the time. I mean, death is going to come one way or another, somehow. So the point is that we will be protected. The body has got to go one way or another. Just think of all the people who died on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Arjuna was worried about his friends and relatives, his worshipable guru, his worshipable grandfather, all these blood relatives and other. He was very much on the bodily platform. Now Krishna covered him so that he would be there. And he said, better that I go off to the forest. I don't want to enjoy this kingdom which will be soaked with the blood of my friends and relatives. That's one of his verses in the first chapter, or second chapter actually. And ultimately, of course, he fought, he surrendered. And there was a huge massacre. I mean, when Yudhishthira, after the battle was over, Yudhishthira was disconsolate. Not only the human beings, if you look up Akshohini, Akshohini is so many thousands of horses, so many thousands of elephants also, in addition to the soldiers there. And all slaughter, there's so much blood on the battle, it was horrible. I mean, materially, and Yudhishthira was disconsolate, and then he had to go to Bhishma Dev. Bhishma Dev finally set him straight, and he took up the role of the king. So these things are either individually or collectively, we're all going to leave this body. And Krishna says, right in the Bhagavad Gita, aside from war, the greatest danger you face is Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi, Dukkha, Dosha, Anudarshanam. One should see these miseries. This is the part of the Gita. Krishna is describing the elements of knowledge that one should have. That 20, I think, 20 symptoms of knowledge and devotion. Amanitvam, Madambitvam, Ahimsa, Chantirajabam. But here he's saying that one should keep those. What does it mean? Dukkha, Dosha, Anudarshanam means we should be aware of those at all times and not do anything to prolong our stay in the material world where we keep suffering those, So Prabhupada refers to this verse in the Bhagavatam, very famous and favorite verse of Prabhupada. Samashitaye padapallavaplavam mahatpadam punyayasho marare bhavambode vatsapadam param padam 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 yadvipatam natesham. Anyway, someone has to be deaf not to hear the poetry in that verse. So samashita means take full shelter. This is describing how devotees, pure devotees. Samashita ye padapallavaplavam. Those who take full shelter of the boat of the lotus feet of Krishna. Padapallavaplavam. Plavam means boat. What's the nature of those feet? Mahatpadam. There's two meanings. One is that's where the whole universe is resting, the Mahatattva. And all the Mahatmas also stay at the lotus feet of Krishna. Punya Yasha Murari, of Murari's, Krishna's lotus feet. Punya Yasha means that if you just hear his glories and chant his glories, you become pious. They're so potent. You do nothing else, you just hear and chant. They give piety, especially the holy name, of course. So then he says, what do you need a boat for? Bhavambudir. Because we're in an ocean of birth, death, old age, and disease. This word bhava is very interesting. It's a whole different word from bhava. Don't confuse it. Long and short age, I'm going to mention that later, the importance of getting those straight. Bhava ambudir means the ocean of birth and death, ever changing. This is what bhava means, constant change. So very dangerous. It's fraught and causes so much suffering. All that water shrinks down to what? The water in a calf's hoof print, not even a cow's hoof print, which may be a little harder to step over, calf's hoof. So it's interesting. You're taking shelter of the boat, and suddenly you don't need the boat anymore. The whole thing is shrunk down, you can just cross over. But the point is that's the shelter, the lotus feet. Bhavam vatsapadam, and then param padam. Why? Because such devotees have gone to the supreme abode. Param padam means the supreme place, Padam padam, step by step. Padam padam yad vipadam natesham. Not for them is this place where it's danger at every step. So this is the real solution to all of the dangerous situation of this material world. People don't realize it. This is part of Maya. How many people, when you approach, say, I'm good. You're not good. You're threatened at every moment. Half of them say that. So that's the point, is that part of the first lesson in devotional service is that this is not a you can't attain a peaceful, happy situation in the material world. It's a complete illusion. This is Maya's trick, to try to convince you that through covering our knowledge with sense gratification. Elementary lesson in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3. Arjuna wanted to know, what is it that impels us to do things against our own best interest? You see? Even if we know it, well, of course, it's kama. It's very powerful material desire headed by sex desire. So, what's the result of that? The first, he describes what is the effects of being under the sway of kama, illusion. Avitam ganametina ganino nityavidina. This eternal enemy, powerful material desire headed by sex desire, covers your knowledge. Avitam gana. Knowledge of what? Knowledge of everything most important. Of your imminent, of your mortality, of who is God, who you are, what this world is, this whole sambandha that we have to find and say. You think maybe there's no God? Who cares? Not for me. In America today, there's a huge leaving of the church. The younger people are not following it. There's too many scandals, too much whatever, too much internet. But whatever it is, people are becoming, they're still looking, they still think, I'm spiritual, not religious, right? Some people like to think like that, because they feel the need for that if you're, but the organized religion that have come down in Christianity, they're leaving the church. So, because they don't know, in this chapter, in very few verses, we're going to come across some very, very essential instructions of Yamaraj, quoted all the time. What is Dharma? Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam. How many times I hear Prabhupada on his tapes? Real Dharma, you can't create it on your own. You can't speculate about it. What is it? It's those words of God. Dharmam is sakshat bhagavat pranitam. That only God himself, the supreme controller, can create the rules that govern his creation. It makes perfect sense. That's why the parampara and the shastra is so important, Bhagavad Gita as it is. Prabhupada saw that as a tremendous social crime, all of this speculation on Bhagavad Gita, all these other translations that are not by devotees. It doesn't help you. I mean, I experienced that myself. I read it, but like that professor, I didn't know what to do. I didn't even think there was an injunction to do anything. But Bhagavad Gita is the supreme instruction of what to do and what not to do for your own benefit and for the benefit of everyone else. But without a proper explanation and being delivered by the proper person, it remains a mystery. You know, that's the value of Prabhupada's books, and his whole mission was built on that. He was the prime Vishnu Dura. It's saving us from the ropes of Yamaraj. So this padam padam vipadam natesham. Not for them is this place where there's danger at every step. So we want to be one of those ones who has taken full shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna. And that means accepting, becoming a pure devotee. Okay, we're not pure devotee. Being enthusiastic and determined to follow the steps that ultimately will make us pure devotees. And along the way, you'll progressively feel more and more protection of Krishna. Just like this pandemic that took place. Suddenly, you know, it was a big thing psychologically for everyone in the world. Because suddenly there was danger. In every breath, what to speak of every step. Suddenly the very fact of breathing, which we just take for granted, oh, I can't stay next to that person. You know, I got to wear the mask. Otherwise, you know, it really sobered people up. And we had, anyone who was here, we had suddenly people coming and surrendering. I think it was during the pandemic that you came, right? And others also. Suddenly there were a whole bunch of them. Yeah, I got to get serious. That book I read makes a lot of sense now. So, but it should always be like that. There's always at every step there's danger. You know, individually, socially, so many things going on. So, then there's the question of as finally the heat is coming. It must be working. I'm feeling too sweaty. I'm going to take this off now. I'm your public thermostat. So anyway, these instructions, this whole sixth canto, then what we read so far is the beginning of the sixth canto, is essential for enlivening us for taking shelter of the holy name. You know, and most of it, as you see here, is all about the protection that you get from chanting the holy name. It negates your sinful reactions. It's almost like a loophole. You know, all the sins you committed in your life in different lifetimes, horrible things. You know, Jamil became pretty much of a rascal. You know, and but he was chanting at the end there. His youngest son. His name was Narayan, and he's chanting, he's calling him for all kinds of reasons. You know, come and take your prasadam. Narayan, don't mess around with that. You know, Narayan, Narayan, Narayan. And it was constantly removing any sin reaction from the sins that he had performed since the last time he chanted it. You know. So this is also a very enlivening thing. This comes up again in the prayers of Chitraketu. And we always hear how if you chant just once, you know, this is so potent, it eliminates more sins than you can commit. Right? There's a verse like that. I forget the Sanskrit. But in the pastime with Vritrasura, which starts with Chitraketu, I'm going to tell the whole pastime, but his only son dies, you know, and he ends up becoming a devotee and getting a mantra and chanting it for 7 days or something like that, and getting a vision of Sankarshan, you know. So his life is transformed. And in those prayers, which I'll tell you, all my life of chanting prayers and figuring out the meter, I can't figure out the meter of these prayers. So we'll have to work it out together. But they're very wonderful. And one of them says, not if you chant once, but if you hear the holy name once. There's a difference. I mean, you go out on Harinam, so many people are hearing, except those really unfortunate people who go like this. There's a few of those. But most people, you know, they'll go by, you know, and they may even say, oh yeah, who are they? Those are Hare Krishnas, you know, and they're sort of chanting. But thousands of people don't do that. But even if they hear once, just imagine, by devotees chanting who are real devotees, you know, then their sinful reaction. Just imagine how, you know, merciful that is. We should feel like that. Oh, wait, let me go. Despite everything, you know, I'm going to go out and go chant the holy name in Harinam. But to speak of the books also. Books are even more, well, I'm not going to say they're more potent, but there's two limbs of the same idea, helping people. So, Prabhupada is very encouraging. The pure devotees of Lord Vishnu may rest assured of the Lord's protection. And as long as they are in this material world, they should fully engage in devotional service by preaching the cult of Lord Chaitanya. So that's, the thing is, we've had instances like that. I remember near the beginning of that pandemic, when Bhakti Charu Swami succumbed to, it was just like a real shock to the movement. He was so influential, such a wonderful devotee, Wasn't he protected? Does that negate this? No. He was hearing and chanting, as you remember. There was one picture of him that he had been under sedation or whatever. He woke up, but he was still in the house. He was in the room, and he didn't look terrified. He looked curious. He looked like pretty normal, which is incredible. I used to work in a hospital and a part of the service that saw a lot of people die. It's the inhalation where you bring oxygen to people. I think I also may have killed one guy by mistake. I'm hoping by mistake. Anyway, it happens. So I saw a lot of people die, and nobody is peaceful at the end. Mostly, they're so disturbed that they put them under sedation. And if they're able to, at all be conscious, the TV's going. Can you imagine watching that while you're expiring? They have no idea what's going on. But I've also seen a lot of devotees die, leave their bodies. A lot, maybe a dozen. Because they asked me to chant, I come and chant, so many. And it's a different experience. Generally, they're much peaceful, and if they're... I remember this one lady, Padmavati, those who remember her, She calls me up, I've got to go to the hospital, what's happening? I can't breathe, because she had COPD. Those who know, it means, what is it? What's the obstructive, what does the C stand for? What is it? Chronic. Yeah, pulmonary obstructive disease. It comes with someone who smoked a lot. She was smoking before she joined. She'd smoked a lot of cigarettes. Anyway, so she would periodically go and get treatment. She said, I got to go in the hospital. I can't breathe. So I went there, and then she didn't come out. But she was there, and we went and visited her. And then the last time, I went with Rajendra Nandana was in town. We went together, and we were chanting. It's almost like a tune for that, Hare Krishna, but the original tune. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. That was the original tune. So we're chanting, and she's, lying there. And then she had 3 children, 2 sons and a daughter, who were different parts of the country. They flew in, and they were there. So it came that time, the doctor said she can't be recovered from this, and you make the decision if you want to, Said, okay, so it's time, we're going to discontinue the machines, So they asked us to leave the room. We said, well, it'd be auspicious if she could hear, but they insisted, so what are we going to do? So we took a little trip to just a few doors away, which is a waiting room, and Rajendra and I were waiting there, And after maybe 10, 15 minutes, one of the sons came in. And he said, we took all the machines up, but she's still struggling to breathe. She's not leaving, She didn't say leaving, she's not dying, So you better come back in there, and do what you were doing, because they realized the importance. So we went in and we sang maybe for 1 or 2 minutes, and she relaxed and she left peacefully. She was quite a lady. So anyway, and there's so many other instances. So that's what it means. That's where the protection is. The protection is for your consciousness. If you're sincere, and you're, a serious devotee, and you're chanting, then Krishna will protect your consciousness when that happens. I remember it was, 6, 7 years now. A mother and daughter were flying somewhere in India, and the plane went down. They died. No one knows exactly, what they were saying and chanting, but they were devotees, chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. I remember Bhakti Narayan Maharaj told this story years ago. He goes to India. He'd been going to Mayapur meetings before the pandemic. It was all, they would go. And years and years, 20, 30 years, every year, fly. And he'd often fly the western route, the Singapore and then over. So he describes there's a certain amount of humor to this. So he happens to be sitting next to this lady who's highly made up. She's wearing a hat, you know, and she's looking at him. And what's this guy? You know, she was completely stand. So he's all right. So he's reading a Bhagavad Gita, you know. And he knew that when he gets to near Japan, because of the way the air is working, that there was a lot of turbulence. Often there's a lot of turbulence there. He was ready for it because he'd been over it. She wasn't, and many in the plane weren't. So it started, and it was really serious, you know. So what is he going to do? He's chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. He already chants that way. You can imagine when he's. So he was chanting like crazy, and she was freaking out, you know. And people, if you're not strapped in, it was the kind of thing where you'd hit the roof because it's dropped precipitously. It happens. So her makeup was all messed up. Everything was messed up. So after it was over, of course, it smoothed out. And she said, "Well, what were you doing?" You know. So he explained to her what happened, and she had a different respect, you know. But there were other instances, I'm not going to go through all of them, of devotees who almost went down in planes and they were just chanting. That's what we all have to be. You have to be ready to, beads or no beads, you know, when danger strikes, it's Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Yeah. So that's the real protection, is your understanding philosophy and also taking risks for Krishna when you see the protection there. I was just finished reading. Vijay has 100 stories of his own, and many are coming out in his book when it finally manifests. But I was reading Mukunda Maharaj's book, Miracle on 2nd Avenue, you know, and so many instances when you could see Krishna's hand there, just making things work. You know, they go to London. They really don't know anybody. Shyama Sundar, he had the idea back in San Francisco. We got to meet the Beatles. We got to meet the Beatles. And Mukunda said, yeah. That was a miracle that he got out of there. You know, there's a humor to that. He and Malati, before they joined, you know, they were involved in some drug deals. You know, everyone was at that time. And so they had some legal case that was going. And so after they took initiation and they were working in the San Francisco, they had told Prabhupada, well, we have to go to jail. And we don't know when we're going to get out. I said, Prabhupada, why? He said, for drug dealing. I said, well, I was a drug dealer back in India, you know, and they all thought he was Prabhupada, you know. So they went into jail, and they could get 20 years. You know, who knows what happened. But it was a short time, a couple of weeks. They got out. You know, Mukunda Maharaj also was entangled. There was this incredible thing that I never heard before about him. He went to northern New York. He was in New York City. He wasn't yet committed yet. He had met the devotees, and he was working with Prabhupada. And anyway, he got a legal complication. You know, the police. He was there when some other drug guy had he was a serious dealer, and Mukunda wasn't. But he was there. Happened to be at the house. They arrested him, put him in jail for a while. His wife, came. Johnny said he had good connections. Said, well, we called up this relative of yours and that, and we have the best lawyers and everything. You know. Anyway, he got out of it, but it was scary for a while. You know, and Prabhupada said, advised him. He wrote him a letter, called him, which was a big thing. That all of his friends in the music industry stopped because there was an article in the New York Times about it, mentioning his name, associated with drug dealing and accusing him of having liaison with an underage girl. It was horrible. They'd do that, throw the book at you, But he had a good lawyer. His wife came to visit him and said, "No, don't worry, we're going to get the best lawyer," and he got out of it. And so he experienced how Krishna provided protection, and you can experience that. And when the final time comes, you can feel that protection is going to be there. Krishna is real. He's going to help us. So that's one of the lessons here, is that pure devotees of Lord Krishna may rest assured of Lord's protection. Well, we have to become pure. As long as they are in this material world, they should fully engage in devotional service. So the key is to be, as shown in this book and every day, the Sankirtan devotees and others in this, to take on risks for Krishna, to know that he's going to protect, and that he is most favorable, and as he says right in the Gita, for those who preach this message, and especially for those who take risk preaching this message. Prabhupada had full faith in that. Well, he was the only one who had full faith in that. He embraced that order of his spiritual master, came to America, took all risks, and almost passed, several times on the ship, and also from that stroke he had in Memorial Day in '67. That was an incredible situation. And devotees were chanting all night. He asked them to chant, and it was amazing. There was I learned in this book, while they were chanting, Malati related this to Mukunda, who I think had to take rest for some reason, later the next morning. There was a certain point in the middle of the night when everything changed, when we felt the atmosphere change, and we knew that Prabhupada was going to pull through. And he himself later said that he was supposed to, he was scheduled to leave his body, but because of your sincerity, Krishna saved me, What would have happened then? There'd be no Hare Krishna movement. We wouldn't be sitting here, So this whole movement is a miracle. I know my practicing Krishna consciousness is definitely a miracle, where I'm coming from, my life before that. So we should accept that. It should be faith building. In other words, it's the transformation that we have felt by chanting seriously Hare Krishna. We should say, oh, this is just the first installment. It progresses more and more. We can also experience some of these higher emotions and these feelings and these bliss that's there. And the point is that this is the only way to actually be happy in this material world, by not being of the material world. Prabhupada would often say that like being in a temple, or being like in the Dwarka or somewhere where the whole atmosphere is for service. It's not really in the material world. It's like being in Vaikuntha, and you can feel the anxiety is not there. So much mental difficulty from this pandemic people have, but the devotees are chanting away. You don't see that so much amongst devotees. There may be some anxiety. Maybe it's because I got all my shots. I got my fourth booster shot the other day. I'm old now. My body's kind of old. I'll be 75 in a couple of days. So I'm doing that. But that's not really why I'm not feeling so much anxiety. It's because Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare. So this is, and this, Dharma Dasaksha Bhagavad Gita, he's also going to list in 10, 12 Mahajans. Yamaraj is also doing that. These are very important. And we'll see those 12 Mahajans, they appear throughout the Bhagavatam. They all come almost like on the stage. Narada Muni, every canto. Some just have to have one set of instructions. Like Bhishma Dev, it's mostly in his prayers that we hear his instructions and his words. But Narada is everywhere. Prahlad is so often quoted. So the only one that doesn't appear is Janaka. I don't know. You don't hear much about his instructions, but he's also a Mahajan. So this is, you see, this is the line that we come in. All of them, it's their instructions in the Bhagavatam that constitute the Amnaya. Amnaya is a very important word. It means the scriptural knowledge that's come down, not only in the books, but through the disciplic succession, those who are living the Shastra and who are preaching the Shastra. That should be our evidence, or our books for what we should do and what we should not do. I love this part of the 16th chapter, because we're dealing with the sinner here who was saved. So near the end of the chapter, after Krishna, of course at the beginning he describes all of the saintly qualities. Then he starts describing the demoniac qualities, right? That's most of the chapter. So after, he's describing, they go down and down, and they get cast into I cast them into the hellish difficulties. Well, okay, so how did they get there? So he says the last 4 verses, this is really a significant part of the Gita. It's nice, it'd be good to review it. Tribadam nadakasedam dvaram nashanam kama krodas tata lobhas tasmadeta trayam chajait. So he just described this hellish thing. He said, there are 3 gates leading to this hell: lust, anger, and greed. The wise avoid them. Kama tasmareta tvayam tajait. They're what you're giving up. Then he says what the advantage is. Etava mukto kontaya tamo dwarai sibiraha achayat yatmanakshayas tato yati param gatim. So he's giving a great contrast here. Those who are suffering in hell, lower planets and lower species, that's from too much kama, lusty and anger, greed. But those who have escaped these gates, they act for shreyas, for the ultimate good of the soul. Acharat means their behavior. Acharat atmanakshayas tato yati param gatim. And they go to back to Godhead. So here's a tremendous contrast. Then he gives a warning. Yakshastra vidamutsrija vartate kamakarataha nasa siddham apnoti nasukam na param gatim. But those who ignore or violate the rules of the Shastra, Shastra vidamutsrija, they discard them and continue to act according to their whims, according to the kama, etc. They don't get perfection, they don't get happiness, and they can't go to the Supreme Abode. So it's all in the Shastra, the books that we have. We're living according to that. So then the last verse is so important. Tasmat Shastram Pamanam Te Karya Karya Vastito Gyatra Shastra Vadanoktam Karma Kartami Harisi. So one should accept the Shastra as Prabhupada has given it, the Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Gita, all the other books Prabhupada has given as our Shastra. One should accept that as the evidence, pramanam, what we should do, what we should not do, karya akarya vyavastito. And having understood that, one should actually act in that way as a matter of duty. Now, a matter of duty means that I don't want to do that. Do it anyway as a matter of duty. I really want to do that. Don't do that as a matter of duty. There's two sides, right? That's what surrender means. What is it? Anukulye kena sankalpa partikulyasya bharjanam. These are the first two steps of surrender. Accepting those things that are favorable, even though, it grates upon us. Getting up early? Yes. And others. And then rejecting those things that are unfavorable. That's the first steps in any discipline that you want to advance in. So once you understand that if you don't do this, you're going to be coming back to this world again and again, and facing these dangers, and who knows how long. Why prolong the agony? So that's what the serious devotees do. We accept those things that are favorable or not. And so there's reading these chapters, and the very next verse is this dynamite verse Prabhupada would quote, Dharma to Sakshat Bhagavat Pranitam. All about what real Dharma is, because it comes down to the Dharma being, real Dharma is that which awakens your bhakti for Krishna. What is that? Savai pungsang paro dharmo yato bhakti rhokshaje. But it has to be unmotivated. It means you can't. It's not fruitive. It's not I'm worshiping Krishna, so I'll get this and this and this and that. No, ahoituki and unbroken, and then the soul becomes fully satisfied. So I don't want to. Okay, we have a few minutes. Any questions? I do want to leave a minute or two for Devananda Pandit. Doesn't have much about him. Any questions, comments on these or any other subjects related? We need the mic for Balaram. Where's the second mic? Did it manifest? Oh, right behind you. Okay.
Two mics on. Yeah, I actually wasn't going to make a comment or ask a question, but anyways, I was pointing to Prakash. But yeah, I was thinking during your talk about the airplane experiences that devotees have. I was on an airplane recently, and yeah, there was some rough air, and people were freaked out. I was watching Following Prabhupada. And then I had my headphones on, and I was, watching Following Prabhupada, and then all of a sudden I noticed the plane, rough air.
Yeah.
And then I was just going to keep on listening to watching Following Prabhupada, and then, but it was kept on, and I was like, okay, so then I paused it, and I took off the headphones, and I started chanting Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
And then, I was chanting, and I was thinking, okay, well, maybe it's going to go away soon, and then it kind of got worse. And then the plane went down a little bit, and then naturally, I don't know if it was one girl or a few girls, but, somebody screamed,
Yeah, yeah.
and everybody was kind of, that kind of doesn't help the atmosphere exactly, right? So then I chanted, and then it went kind of smooth, I was like, okay. But then some time passed, and again it was.
Oh boy.
So then when we landed, and on the plane also, throughout the ride, it seemed everyone was kind of quiet.
You mean after that?
Yeah, after that, it was kind of quiet. And then we landed, and then everybody started to clap.
Yeah, yeah, they do
applaud,
that, yes.
they clap, and, they started talking. And then I was thinking, okay, hey, well, all right, we all lived. But, what are we going to do, with our time now? What are we going to do with our... Because, they're all applauding, okay, great, now we can move on with our being not God conscious, and, all our other stuff, but...
Well, you passed the test, you didn't freak out. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna.
I was chanting on my beats.
Prakash, you have something? No. Anyone else? Let me...
I just had a quick question about, in the purport it says devotees should be confident by the protection of the Vishnu Dutas and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When does Krishna come down to protect his devotees, and then how does that differ, kind of?
You mean either the Vishnu Dutas or Krishna himself?
Yeah,
what's the difference?
Kashipu and whatnot.
Well, I don't want to speculate. I mean, in one sense, they're non-different. That the Vaishnavas. I mean, just like we sing every morning, right? Sakshadadidvena samasta shastraya. That all the shastras declare and the sadhus declare that they're non-different. Hare Twena. This word, this suffix Twena means having the quality of, and being. Should be worshipped in the same way, So the Vishnu Dutas, they're messengers, and they can act on behalf of Vishnu. Now at the time of death, if you're thinking, if you're fully absorbed in Krishna, in the holy name, and calling out to Krishna and fully Krishna conscious, then in one sense Krishna is with you right there. What are you remembering? He's there in the remembrance. And whether, you don't usually hear about the Vishnu Dutas coming and taking you back to Goloka Vrindavan, right? They're coming and taking you back to Vaikuntha, Vishnu Loka. So the devotees, the idea is that, this we learned from Krishna book and also the CC. You don't go directly to Krishna Loka. You go to that place where that planet where Krishna is appearing when you leave your body, because he's appearing in all the universes one after another. Like right now, it's Janmashtami on one planet or another, and the next moment it's Janmashtami on another planet. This is how the Leela are always going on in the material world. So you go to the planet where you'll be contemporary of Krishna. And you grow up in Goloka, that's on that planet. The Gokula. And then you'll be further trained in your personal service. Then you go back, So it's not that if you're scheduled to go there, it's not going to be the Vishnu Dutas. The whole thing with the airplane and everything, is not going to be there. You're not going to Vaikuntha Loka. So how that works, I'm not going to speculate, but you'll see Krishna. Well, like you see devotees, and when you see devotees, you're seeing Krishna. You're reminded of Krishna. Oh yeah, I went to the temple, and you remember. You know what I mean? People remind us. So in one sense, it's the same thing. It's absolute. You don't have to worry about it. All right, if I could read a little bit about Devananda Pandit, and there is very little about Devananda Pandit, so we're going to end perfectly on time. Living in Kulia during Sri Chaitanya's pastimes, Sri Devananda Pandit gave professional readings of Srimad Bhagavatam tainted with Mayavad philosophy. One day, Srivas Pandit heard the Bhagavad Katha, began crying, and fell to the ground. Becoming disturbed by this display, the foolish disciples of Devananda threw Srivas out of the assembly. By silently observing this misbehavior of his disciples, Devananda committed the Hatimata Aparad, mad elephant offense. He offended Srivas Thakur. Mad elephant, blaspheming a pure devotee of Lord Chaitanya. Later, by the mercy of Vakreshwar Pandit, an intimate devotee of Sri Gaur Rai, Lord Chaitanya, Devananda understood the divinity of Sri Krishna Chaitanya and surrendered to him. The Lord pardoned his offense and blessed him with bhakti. He serves in Krishna Lila as Bhagari Muni. I forget his pastime, Bhagari Muni. So, he didn't say anything. So saying silent when a devotee is being blasphemed or hurt is a great offense. So we should be ready to jump anytime, All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol.